Welcome everyone, I'm Dale and this is Cinema Historia. Two couples, Christmas Eve, and marital bouts of difficulty. This week we're going back to 1962 for a comedy drama called Period of Adjustment, starring Tony Franciosa, Jane Fonda, Jim Hutton, and Lois Nettleton. And this is directed by George Roy Hill. So, where does our story begin this week? Well, our story begins with Nurse Isabel, played by Jane Fonda, and patient George Haverstick, played by Jim Hutton. War veteran George has been admitted to room 162 at the hospital to cure his shakes due to acute anxiety. Falling in love with Nurse Isabel, they decide after release to go to the Justice of the Peace to get married. The first bout of disappointment is when Isabel discovers they're leaving on their honeymoon for Miami, Florida, in a 1939 black Cadillac hearse with a just married sign on the back. After a truck stop steak dinner and saying goodbye to St. Louis, George reveals to Isabel that he has just quit his job. A rainy honeymoon night at the rundown Old Man River Hotel accelerates their marital problems. Waiting for repairs on their hearse, George calls his war buddy Ralph Bates, played by Tony Franciosa, makes plans on paying him a visit along the way to discuss a business venture of buying a cattle ranch in Texas. It's Christmas Eve and Ralph, who is married to Dottie, played by Lois Nettleton, have just had another one of their family quarrels, and Dottie is now staying with her parents. Ralph, who married for money and to become heir to the family business, is now tired of Dottie's father's behavior. Not helping the situation, Isabel and George visit Ralph on Christmas Eve, begin fighting, with Isabel angrily objecting to her neglect. An upset George leaves after throwing out the suitcases, driving away in the hearse and leaving Isabel stranded. Ralph comforts Isabel with some kindness and a shoulder to cry on, stating not to worry, George will return. Unfortunately, coming over to collect some of her belongings, Dottie peers through the window, sees Isabel, and assumes her husband is having an affair. So, does George return with the shakes and a change of heart for Isabel? Did Ralph really marry Dottie for money, or was it love in bloom? Or are they all just going through a period of adjustment on Christmas Eve? Based on the 1961 play of the same name by Tennessee Williams, the original Broadway production opened at the Helen Hayes Theater in New York on November 10th, 1960, and ran for 132 performances. In 1963, this film received 5 nominations, including 1 Oscar nomination for Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, Black and White. A 71% rating from the film critic Rotten Tomatoes makes such claims as an entertaining romantic comedy, highly recommended for newlyweds-to-be, a very entertaining Christmas comedy with wonderful performances, and a Tennessee Williams written screenplay is what makes it so good. And I would totally agree with that. And our trivia question this week, did this film help launch the career of someone who starred in our film? Did this film help launch the career of someone who starred in our film? So, a little more history and the answer to our trivia question coming up next. This week for history, we're going to talk about this film's director, George Roy Hill. So, George Roy Hill was an American film director. He was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota to George Roy and Helen Frances Hill, part of a well-to-do Roman Catholic family. The family with interest in the newspaper business owned the Minneapolis Tribune. He was educated at the Blake School, one of Minnesota's most prestigious schools, and at Yale University, class of 1943. During World War II, Hill served in the United States Marine Corps as a transport pilot with VMR 152 in the South Pacific. The outbreak of the Korean War resulted in his recall to active duty service for 18 months as a night fighter pilot, attaining the rank of major. After being discharged, Hill worked as a newspaper reporter in Texas, then took advantage of the GI Bill to do graduate work at the Trinity College in Dublin. On his return to the U.S., Hill studied theater at HB Studio in New York City, resulting in acting and touring off-Broadway. Hill used his Korean War experience as the basis for a TV drama, My Brother's Keeper, with Hill himself in the cast. This appeared on Kraft Television Theater, successfully giving Hill television directing duties for other projects until 1959. Hill then focused on theater, directing Broadway productions such as 132 performances of The Gang's All Here in 1960. Hill's success as a theater director led to his first feature as director, the film version of Period of Adjustment in 1962, which became a box office success. Continued with solid box office hits until 1967. Hill had a huge commercial success with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in 1969, starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford. The film received 7 Academy Award nominations and won 4, including Best Song for Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Great song. Reuniting with Newman and Redford in The Sting in 1973, winning 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Both successes meant that for a time, Hill was the only director in history to have made 2 of the top 10 money-making films. With his love of flying, Hill reunited with Robert Redford for The Great Waldo Pepper in 1975, and with Newman for Slapshot, the hockey film, in 1977. His last film being Funny Farm in 1988 with Chevy Chase. Retiring, Hill taught drama at Yale in his later years. Just incredible. And the answer to our trivia question this week: did this film help launch the career of someone who starred in our film? Yes, and it was American actress and activist Jane Fonda. This film launched Jane Fonda to bankable film stardom, earning her a nomination for the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress, Motion Picture Comedy, or Musical. Now considered a film icon, she is the recipient of various accolades, including 2 Academy Awards, 7 Golden Globe Awards, and the AFI Life Achievement Award. Just incredible. And I did a review on The Great Waldo Pepper of 1975, so click the link below, please, and watch another great film. A big thank you this week for my new subscribers and for everyone else taking the time out of their busy week for my channel. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope to see you back next week.
Now look, folks, it's Christmas. Why don't you just forget the whole thing and go on home?
You bring up a child to spare no expenses. This is what you get.
Yeah.
The birthday month.